stretched on my screen there. Okay, so apologies, I think we'll have to live with the slightly stretched display here. Okay, so morning, my name's Philip and I'm a postdoctoral research associate at the University of Cambridge. First of all, I'd like to thank ICAM for travel board for getting me here today. I also, just a quick mention, the funding that my work is all based upon is a grant, basic technology grant from EPSA, the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. We funded a technology grant called Cosmos. Our grant is designed to develop micromolecular coherent optical devices, micromolecular lasers. My project within the Cosmos project is to develop liquid crystal lasers. It's a way of making micromolecular optical sources. Today I want to talk about liquid crystal laser arrays. Okay, so just a brief overview. First of all, I need to introduce you, those of you not familiar with the field of liquid crystal lasers, to the band-edge laser in chiral nematics. And then I'll talk about some of my recent work on monochromatic liquid crystal laser arrays and how we're moving now towards polychromatic devices, i.e. simultaneous emission at multiple wavelengths. Okay, so what is a liquid crystal laser? Well, in order to make a laser, you need three principal components. First of all, you need a gain medium. So in our case, we use a dye, a conventional dye, the same sort of dyes we might find in dye laser systems. And we need to mix that into some kind of feedback structure. Now, in conventional laser, you usually have two mirrors which are reflecting the light backwards and forwards within a resonant cavity. In our case, we don't have two mirrors. We create a distributed feedback structure in the form of a chiral nematic liquid crystal liquid crystal. So here we can see our two cell walls. Sitting between them is a chiral nematic structure into which we've mixed our dye molecules. And that chiral nematic structure creates a periodic refractive index a periodic refractive index profile through the material, which creates a photonic band gap in the structure. This also gives you partial reflection at each individual molecular layer, which gives you a small amount of reflection at every molecular layer, which is analogous to a DFB structure. Thirdly, you need an excitation source of some sort. We optically pump our devices. One of the holy grails of this project would be also to perhaps electrically pump them. But at the moment we're using another laser of a higher frequency to excite the system. So here you can see a typical band structure that you might expect to see in a dye-doped chiral nematic cell. You can see there's a selective reflection over a finite wavelength range over which we have no optical modes emitted. And at the edge of the photonic band gap, we can see an enhancement of the dwell time, increasing the optical density of states, which means that we effectively, because there's a large population of photonic energy states, we predominantly laser along the band edge of our photonic band gap. Now, in theory, we might get lasing at short and long band edge. But due to the orientation of dye with the liquid crystal molecules, it's more favourable for the liquid crystal to laser along the band edge, photonic band gap. So you can see on the right, the green laser beam coming in is our pump, which is partially reflected off the front surface, partially transmitted through. This excites the cell, and the red beam that you can see emitting here, and also in both directions, is the liquid crystal laser. So, as I mentioned before, the conventional way of photo-exciting these liquid crystal lasers is with a single lens, which focuses, in this case, a YAG laser, a pulse laser, onto our cell. And one of the problems with this is that a single lens can only excite a single small focused spot in the cell. I suppose the spot would be a few microns, 10, maybe 100 microns at the smallest and the largest. It's not very efficient use of the liquid crystal region. The other problem with conventional lasing is that the high amount of energy that's being focused into the single spot can actually cause reorientation of the liquid crystal through alignment with the optical field of the pump laser. This also can lead to localized heating, localized expansion, distortion of the helix, and then it has a detrimental effect on the lasing. So our idea was to replace our single focusing lens with a lens array. In this particular case, it's a 10 by 10 lens array, each lens having a 1mm pitch, which creates in turn a 10 by 10 focused array of spots in the cell, each of which excites the liquid crystal diamixture and creates a liquid crystal laser from each individual source. So we have 100 liquid crystal lasers potentially coming out of the far end of our device. So this is going to hopefully distribute the energy across our system. Each one of those spots will be optimized so that it's not photo-orientating or heating up, but is nevertheless lasing, so we can use the entire area of the cell. So in our particular case, most of the systems we're going to talk about today, we use a nematic liquid crystal E49 into which we mix a chiral dopant, which induces the twist in the cell. So this is a self-assembly atomic band cap. I should have to make that point. So the previous speaker gave a very good description of the range of atomic band cap structures. But this is considerably easier to make, just the same way you would make a liquid crystal cell. So into our polychromatic liquid crystal, we also mix a small percentage of our lasing dye, which is DCM, a 10 micron cell. And you can see the feature of the dye and liquid crystal. The blue line here represents the absorption of the dye. We were pumping at 552 nanometers, not quite the optimum. We were restricted by the laser that we had at the time. And the emission spectrum that you get from that system has a peak emission of 592. So we change the concentration of the chiral dopant to select the chiral pitch of the liquid crystal, and we try and match that as close as possible to the maximum of the dye emission, so that your lasing wavelength is optimized. Now, in our system that we're going to discuss in the next slide, we didn't quite match that perfectly with 650 nanometers, but if we use this as a proof of principle to start off with. So here you can see the system, our pump laser coming in here. This is the microlens array. This is focusing an array of spots onto our liquid crystal cell, which is here. The yellow-orange line that you can see is fluorescence in the cell. There's a certain amount of spontaneous emissions going on in the cell. Under the right conditions, this fluorescence is suppressed and stimulated emission dominates. And the lasing stimulated emission comes out in two parallel directions and two opposite directions along the optical axis. In this direction, it's collected by a microscope objective, goes through some non-pass filters just to filter out the pump beam, and then here you can see the emitted laser array. I should mention that we should have 100 spots here, but we're limited here by the aperture of the microscope objective, which is actually blocking our system. In a more recent system, we now use a broader aperture device, and more of the spots can pass through. So here you see, again, this is the illuminated array, which shows how the intensity of our pump beam is distributed across the array. And this in turn shows you the fluorescence in the crystal cell and the output emission profile of our liquid crystal laser. Now, if we instead remove the microscope projector from the previous slide and allow each of these liquid crystal lasers to diverge, overlap, and interfere with each other, what you find is a far field interference pattern which looks remarkably similar to an airy disk. Now, in theory, you could argue that each of these emission spots across the array ought to be lasing at the exact same wavelength and be mutually coherent with each other. And that's if we have a perfectly flat cell with a uniform monodomain and no fluctuations in the surface thickness. In reality, that's not necessarily possible. That's not necessarily what we get. So I'll show you in two slides two separate cells that we made. One which we deliberately made with quite poor alignment qualities. So this introduces domains within the liquid crystal with slightly different chiral pitch. And the chiral pitch, of course, will affect the lasing wavelength that's emitted in that region. So if we look at the spectra of each individual laser spot, which is the broken lines here, you can see lasing nice tight line widths from each individual spot, but subsequent spots don't match up. They're all slightly different wavelengths. And when you recombine all of these emissions into a single output, what you find is that you get a combination of broadening the overall emission. So that's interesting in its own right, but it's not necessarily very practical if we want to recombine all these spots into a single, more powerful output. However, if you make a good job of aligning your cell in monodomain across the entire active area, which is perfectly possible, a monodomain sample gives you emission spectra such that each of these broken lines lie on top of each other. There are actually plots on this graph, but they all emit exactly the same wavelength within the resolution of the spectrometer. And the combined spectrum, which is the solid black line, gives you obviously exactly the same emission as well. So this is illustrating a possibility in which we can take our laser array, take our pump laser, split it into multiple spots, distribute the energy across the cell, and then we can recombine it into a single monomode output. So it opens the door to high-power organic liquid crystal lasers. So this was a blue laser, sorry, it wasn't blue at all, it was a red laser. It was a red laser that we were doing, showing the demonstration here, but we also want to be lasing at other wavelengths. So how do we go about doing that? Well, it's a simple case of, first of all, you need to change the concentration of chiral dopant within the system. Changes the chiral pitch, which in turn affects the lasing wavelength. Now, there is a limit to how much you can do that. If you change the wavelengths too far, you may find yourself moving away from the fluorescence maximum of the dye, in this case DCM. So in the DCM system I just showed you, we're lasing somewhere around 600 nanometers mark, which does indeed coincide with the fluorescence maximum. But if you want to move to shorter wavelengths, 500 nanometers or so, obviously DCM is no longer suitable. So we move instead to a coumarin dye. At 500 nanometers, we can now see we have a much higher fluorescence emission. However, the absorption pattern is reasonably similar, so we should be able to pump it with the same laser, same laser source, perhaps a slightly shorter wavelength. So here we have a large view of frequency. I've already showed this picture. The red emission this is the near field where you can see the individual spots in the array, and then the far field where we allow the outputs to recombine. And here we have a green laser using the coumarin dye. We continue this by now maintaining the coumarin dye, but changing the chiral dopant and the concentration. And we can create a turquoise laser at 500 nanometers and a blue laser at 478 nanometers. There's a little bit of purple coming through in this image, which is the pumping leaking through as well. But filament emission there is blue. This is a much weaker laser than the green and the red laser, partly because your eye is less sensitive to blue, so it appears darker relatively, but also simply because of the close proximity between the dye's emission and absorption spectra. So some of the emitted some of the estimated emission is actually reabsorbed by the dye again. So here's a summary of the lasing wavelengths. We have the pump beam. In this particular case, we now use an OPO system, which we can get down to 430 nanometers. And we have a subsequent emissions at blue, turquoise, green, red. We're not limited to those specific wavelengths. We can choose our system with any power pitch that you wanted. We can get any kind of wavelength. This is about the shortest wavelength we've managed to achieve so far, but and you could go right into the infrared, no problems, by choosing a lower concentration of power dopant. So this opened the idea to us that we thought, well, if we can have any colour emission from our electric crystal laser, why not try and achieve multiple colours simultaneously in the same cell? So how could you do that? Well, we take our electric crystal laser array system as before, but we replace our electric crystal cell with a gradient pitch electric crystal cell. That's one which, on the one side of the cell, we have power pitch 1, power pitch 2 on the other side of the cell, and a gradient of the pitch across the cell. We would also need to introduce two different dye mixtures in here, the DCM system for the red laser and the coumarin dye, so that we have good emission over a broad range of spectral wavelengths. Here you can see this perhaps more clearly. At the top here we have a low chiral concentration with a long wavelength, which gives you red emission, and a shorter chiral pitch, giving you green or blue possibly emission. And because of the close proximity, as I mentioned before, of the absorption spectra, we can pump this entire system with a single laser source of 20 nanometers. So this is the cell we made. This is photographs taken immediately after filling. So we prepared two mixtures. On the left-hand side, the DCM mixture, which created the red laser array on the earlier slides. On the right-hand side, coumarin dye mixture with a shorter, lower concentration of carbon, which gives you the green laser. And we filled two mixtures on opposite sides of the cell with a small air gap here in the glue to allow the air to escape. So initially, you get a very sharp boundary between the two cells. But in time, these two dyes diffuse into each other and eventually create a nice diffusion gradient across the cell. So one day after filling, there's a sharp diffusion boundary. If you can take the system and now excite it and look at the laser emission, we can see, unsurprisingly, green emission on the one side, red emission on the other. And our laser wavelengths are spectrally resolved, nicely separated. But that's just a two laser system, that's not two wavelengths. What we want is a more polychromatic system. We now wait a few days for the dye to diffuse into each other. We now start to see, an orange emission in the intermediate gap, and the corresponding spectrum shows we have multiple spikes of laser emission. We wait 2 weeks, the cell becomes much more heavily diffused, and we end up with these three pictures having taken separate positions within the cell. Far left we have red, far right we have mostly green and yellow, and then we have intermediate colours in between. Now, you could argue that this may not be a very practical device because this is now diffusing its time, it's not constant time. But what we're working on at the moment now is to polymer stabilise the system. So you allow the dyes to diffuse to a desired level, and then you illuminate the UV lights and polymerize the polymer inside it and freeze that diffusion. And here you can see multiple lasing wavelengths all the way across the visible wavelength, well, from green to red. Just briefly before I conclude, I also like to mention in our efforts to try and make our blue laser, I wish I could say it was deliberate, but it's slightly invertedly stumbled across. We believe we've seen dual band edge emission in the liquid crystal laser. As I mentioned at the beginning, lasing and all the lasing in the systems I've been talking about here has been lasing at the long band edge, which is more favourable due to the orientation of the dye with the liquid crystal. However, it is theoretically possible for you to achieve lasing at the short band edge of the atomic band gap. So in this particular system, we happen to see two wavelengths that are separated, which we're using a single dye system. We went to assure what this is, but our explanation, when upon closer inspection we realised that the atomic band gap of our system, so normally the lasing would occur at the long band edge, but we've actually come quite a long way down this green line is the emission spectrum of the dye. We're actually much lower emission probability. what actually happens to be the short banded is actually now at the peak of the emission spectrum, which increases the probability that light will be emitted in that wavelength. So we now got enough light to get above the laser threshold, and we can now see that we actually do get laser in the short bandage as well as in the longer bandage. This might have other applications if you want to have two laser systems in a single cell. So just in conclusion, I've demonstrated to you a liquid crystal laser array, which opens the door to high-power liquid crystal laser applications, reduces problems associated with optical orientation, dye bleaching, and heating. So recombination of this array of lasers is possible using monodomain cells, but polydomain cells using polychromatic emission. Then we can have monochromatic laser arrays across the full visible spectrum. We've also managed to demonstrate some polychromatic laser array systems using gradient pitch crystals. And of course, if you recombine one of these polychromatic systems, you can conceivably have white light emission across the entire display, and might have possible applications towards RGB laser displays with very wide colour gamut, so using very spectral light with RGB laser emissions. And finally, we've seen some dual bandage lasing as well. So if you need more further information, there's a couple of papers that we'll be producing on the subject. I'll be very happy to put the direction on. And finally, just a quick thank you again for the Junior Chiral Award to you for coming today. Cosmos Network for the funding, and to my fellow group members and research associates at the CMMPE group, University of Cambridge. Thank you for your attention.
Time for a couple of questions.
Is there a possibility of tuning your pitch and output frequency by an external field?
Yes, in a short answer, but it has its problems. There's some work going on by a PhD student also on the project with us on voltage control tuning of the photonic band gap, and it shows some promise. The only problem is at the moment it's only been demonstrated using negative dielectric anisotropy materials, and the problem with that is that they don't laze. The birefringence of these negative delta E materials is quite low, so if we don't get the distributed feedback, you need to laze. But there's ways in which we can get around that. So ultimately, that will be a very nice way to go. The temperature. If I change the temperature, you effectively can expand the helix. You get a change in the chiral pitch in cell, so you do get a change in wavelength. And there are some applications on wavelength tuning through temperature control. It may not be a particularly quick way of tuning, but it certainly gives you some tunability. Eventually, if you heat it up too far, though, you will go out of the, go beyond the nematic phase and think of it as isotropic, of course.
So, thank you very much. And, we'll close this session. We'll take a 10-minute break and then reconvene.